Hello, everybody. This is Rick Manning, President of Americans for Limited Government. Just want to thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching. You know, there's so many things going on, and every day I try to provide a couple of the key things that are happening, problems that are occurring, and just keep you up to date on some of the things that, quite honestly, sometimes it's called Rick Rant because I will walk into my staff office sometimes and I'll see an issue and I'll want to do a statement, and I will walk in and I will just be going a mile a minute talking about this stuff and basically dictating a statement as fast as I can talk. And my poor staff tries to figure it all out and piece it together and turn it into English. But they came to me and said, "Hey, Rick, why don't you do that on camera, because it's pretty cool." The challenge is, those aren't planned. And so this is. So it's a little bit more difficult. But let me give you a couple of things that irritated me today. And I think they're really, I think it's important. Some of these things are really important. One of the first things, I was doing a radio interview this morning, regularly scheduled, Michael Yaffe in Huntsville, Alabama. And so I was waiting to go on the air. The ABC News at the top of the hour news break was playing, and they talked about Kyle Rittenhouse and how Kyle Rittenhouse was up for there's a bunch of things. He was on trial and for killing two people. And I'm sitting there going, wait a second. Kyle Rittenhouse was a 17-year-old kid who was attacked by Antifa soldiers who attempted to kill him, one of whom had a gun, and he in self-defense ended up killing two people who were trying to kill him and were chasing him down to try to do harm to him, who attacked him because he was there as a supporter of Donald Trump. He tried to attack him, more importantly, because he was there because store owners were having their stores burned down in Kenosha, Wisconsin, in the wake of a police shooting of a black individual. And so the common criminals who were coming out under the guise of Antifa, the Antifa soldiers, arrived on the scene, and because the police weren't going to protect the businesses, some people came to help protect those businesses. Kyle Rittenhouse answered the call, 17 years old. And as a result, he ends up being attacked by a bunch of Antifa thugs, and he ends up defending himself, and now he's on trial. So let's just put this into perspective, folks. People like Ricky Schroeder from Silver Spoons, you might remember the show Silver Spoons, has supported Rittenhouse. He has provided some words of encouragement and maybe some money. We've got two police officers from different parts of the country gave money, small amount of money, $10, $15, to the Kyle Rittenhouse Defense Fund. They got fired for doing it. A lieutenant in the Norfolk Police Department got fired for giving money for Kyle Rittenhouse's legal defense fund. Now let's contrast that. Kamala Harris and her staff were giving money to pay the bail for the Antifa rioters who were attacking police, who were engaged in wholesale warfare against local businesses and the government of the United States. And yet Kamala Harris and her staff, Kamala's vice president, many of the staff are in the White House staff or in the administration. They didn't get fired, they got promoted. But two police officers got fired because they stood up for somebody they gave money so Kyle Rittenhouse could have an actual legal defense. You want to know what's wrong in this country? What's wrong in this country is that Antifa soldiers can attack businesses with impunity, not face any law enforcement ramifications, not be thrown in jail, not end up with lifetime sentences. And on the other hand, Kyle Rittenhouse, a 17-year-old kid who shows up to try to do what's right and defend private property, ends up in jail because those thugs try to kill him, and he acted in self-defense. That's what's wrong in this country. The judicial system goes after the wrong people. Now, Kyle Rittenhouse put himself into that position, no doubt. But he did so with the intent of protecting private property, and he did protect private property. He ended up getting attacked. He put his life on the line and at risk. And you could argue if he hadn't gone there, there wouldn't have been any problem. Of course, businesses would have been, the business that he was standing in front of would have been destroyed. So there would have been damage. A guy who was a criminal, a convicted criminal, child molester, who was shot and killed after attacking Kyle Rittenhouse. He would, he'd still be running around in a black mask and armor attacking other people. The challenge here is there's a real sense that the judicial system works for one side, it doesn't work equally for everybody. And that is the single biggest danger to our republic. And a republic it is. Today's Constitution Day. It's, in 1787, the Constitution was ratified. And so we've been engaged in this experiment for a little bit. Most people think that get confused a little bit on this. The Declaration of Independence, as you all know, I'm sure, declared our independence from England, from the King of England, and it was a statement of principle and grievances that to say why the 13 colonies were breaking away and becoming an independent group. Once the war was over and we won, then we went through a period where we had something called the Articles of Confederation. And the Articles of Confederation was a very loose federal government where the states had all the power. And and quite honestly, it was an attempt to allow the colonial governments to be kind of sovereign and to have the federal government be more to do some basic services, but do very, very little. That didn't work. The colonies were breaking apart, and some smart people got together and said, wait a second, if we're going to be a nation, we have to be a nation. So the Constitution was created to bind the colonies together, the states together, and to bind them together through a common defense, and for liberty, and to be able to protect liberty. And I would encourage anybody out there who's watching today, or even over this weekend, get a copy, go online and read at least the preamble of the Constitution. Talk to your kids, your grandkids, your great grandkids, get on a Zoom call and talk to them about what the Constitution is and why it matters. People seem to forget that the first branch of government in the Constitution is Congress. It's not the president, it's Congress. And the powers of Congress are enumerated out. And then you go and you see the second article, and that's the presidency, the executive branch. And the third is the court system. The thing, when you read about the court system, it's surprising to some that 9 justices were not mandated in the Supreme Court. It was left up to Congress to decide, up to the executive branch to agree upon it. And so there have been a number of different numbers on the Supreme Court, but for about the last 100 years, it's been 9, and it's been 9 for a reason, and that is essentially the decision was made that we didn't want political manipulation of the court by changing the numbers to suit the political fad of the time. Now, FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, attempted to, was mad because the court kept knocking down a lot of his socialist policies. And as a result, he said, I'm going to change the court, the makeup of the court. And he attempted to change the makeup of the court to allow additional justices to be appointed by him and ratified by his supermajority in Congress and the Senate in particular. And so that's what he was doing. That's what he wanted to do. And he ended up being rebuffed, and he didn't get to stack the court. But the court itself changed its the way it was ruling out of fear that they would be subverted by the political branches of government. That's what's happening today. That's what's happening today with all this talk about adding justices to the Supreme Court and the Supreme Court commission that the President Biden appointed. It's all about trying to intimidate the Supreme Court into doing what the Biden administration and the left wants. Understand, this is what the majority, the Democrat majority is. They have a 5-vote majority in the House of Representatives. Out of 435 members, they have a 5-vote majority. That's not a mandate. That's the skin of your teeth. That's as slim of a majority as has existed for as long as. But they want to call it a mandate. They want to fundamentally change America, transform America, finish the Obama job with a 5-vote majority. On the Senate, it's a 50-50 split. The Democrats have 50, the Republicans have 50. And because the vice president sits as the head of the Senate and breaks ties, the Democrats are in the majority. That's as slim of a majority as you can have in this country. And yet Biden wants to put additional, well, let's say, I won't say Biden. Many Democrats want to put additional members on the Supreme Court. So the Supreme Court will rule with an eye towards politics and the leftward leap that they're trying to accomplish, rather than based upon constitutional powers that are actually limited by the Constitution and by the subsequent amending of the Constitution. So it's really important that we remind people about Constitution Day, and that you share the Constitution with your loved ones. I was on the National Archives site, which in the National Archives houses the Constitution, houses the Declaration of Independence. Their job is to teach people about the American history and the access to the documents. It took me 3 clicks on the National Archives site to get to a copy of the Constitution, to get to actually the text of the Constitution. They had all sorts of seminars they wanted to give me about what the Constitution meant. They had cherry picked some of the amendments to the Constitution that they wanted to focus on, and they wanted to do little classes on. But I couldn't get the actual Constitution without going through 3 clicks from the National Archives. Now, if you go to the National Archives, if you're fortunate enough to be in Washington, D.C., go there. It is spectacular to be able to see the founding documents, to see the Declaration of Independence, to see the Constitution, see the Bill of Rights. It is just amazing. One of the challenges are because they were toured around the country for 100 years. You know, the parchment, the paper gets thin, the writing gets faded. So don't let the writing get faded in your heart. Don't let the writing get faded in your children's hearts, in your grandchildren's hearts, heck, in your great-grandchildren's hearts, in your neighbors' hearts, in the people you know and love's hearts. Help them understand what the Constitution says and why it's important as the governing document of this country. That's what Constitution Day is for. And we're blessed to live in this country that's governed by a Constitution that is built on the notion that the majority may rule, but the minority has rights, and that those rights, and that individuals, even when the majority's ruling, that individual rights cannot be stomped on by a ruling majority, putting you and me, our rights, at the forefront of the freedoms that Constitution is designed to protect. We can thank people like George Mason for the Bill of Rights. We can thank James Madison for the Constitution, but we can really thank God for inspiring them to deliver this document that has successfully guided this nation for more than 240 years. And it's Constitution Day. So nobody talks about it. We don't fire off fireworks, but folks, this is the day that matters, because it is the day that America truly was founded. That wasn't on my list of things to talk about, but it's what I wanted to talk about. So that, I guess there's a reason I'm the boss. I get to talk about what I want to. I want to talk about something a little bit different. And this just, once again, I talked about Kyle Rittenhouse. I talked about Constitution Day. The last couple of days, the Biden administration has proven why each one of us has stood up and said, we don't want socialized medicine. They have proven to us the danger of socialized medicine. You really have to know this, because the left is going to try to cram down the next steps of socialized medicine in terms of price controls and everything and a whole bunch of other things within the next few months. But here's what you need to remember. We know that the government has been suppressing treatments, that the elites have said, gee whiz, we really are not even going off and saying, here's some off-the-shelf medicines you can take to try to keep yourself from getting COVID. They want the narrative to be COVID is death, because when COVID is death, then COVID is control. So they don't want treatments. 19 months into this thing, we ought to have some darn good treatments. And the fact is, we do. The one that's actually one of the few treatments that has actually been approved is the monoclonal therapy. It works in a significant number of cases. And what the federal government is trying to do right now is ration monoclonal treatments. Why do they want to ration them? Not because you can't get them. They want to ration it because they want to use it, have it be punitive. They want to make certain that if you are not vaccinated and you get COVID, you're last in line to get the approved treatments for the disease, because they'll show you for not being vaccinated. This is akin to the government saying, well, we told you not to eat McDonald's for the last 40 years. But you did. And so now we're going to say you now have high blood pressure and you have you've got a blocked artery. Well, you're at the back of the line for being able to get heart surgery, because after all, it's your fault. And we think it's your fault. And so we're going to punish you by making you more susceptible to death. That's what rationing, healthcare rationing is. It's government deciding who should get treatment and who shouldn't get treatment for all sorts of reasons. It's government deciding, not your doctor, not prioritizing who's the worst, who's got the most, who's worse off, who really can benefit most from the treatment. It takes the entire scope of your treatment away from doctors. And it suddenly becomes the government determining, based on political or other considerations, who should get treatment, who should get which drug, who should be told, well, palliative care for you, we're going to put you into hospice, and who should have extraordinary measures taken to save their lives. It's not the government's job. It's dangerous, and it's surprising that this administration has so easily fallen into the trap, into the idea that medicine and healing should be punitive, to control the population, to do what we want them to do. And the fact that so many people have not stood up and screamed bloody hell about it tells you how far we've sunk. Now, Ron DeSantis in Florida, the governor of Florida, has basically said to Joe Biden, well, you can do what you want to do. State of Florida, we're going out and we're buying a bunch of doses of monoclonal treatment. And they did. And so the people of Florida, this should be a private transaction, but the people of Florida are now going to be able to have monoclonal treatment regardless of whether or not they're vaccinated or not. That medical doctors will decide based on situations who gets the treatment, who doesn't. Now, there are other treatments out there, and there are ones that Joe Biden isn't going to allow you to get either. Some of your governors won't allow you to get them. I'm not going to mention because I don't want to be banned off of this YouTube channel, but you know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. And, a lot of the frontline doctors are out there who are willing to prescribe them and get them to you. It takes about 2 weeks to get them in advance. So if you do feel as though you want to be proactive on something like this, the internet's a wonderful place to find this kind of information, and I'd encourage you to do it. But the fact of the matter is, it is inexcusable that we've spent 19 months spending billions upon billions upon billions of dollars on research. And the best that Dr. Anthony Fauci can say is wear a mask, social distance, and get a vaccine shot, and then get another one for a booster shot. And since you don't want to do that, which 30%, 35% of the people haven't, at least the adults, since you don't want to do it, we're not going to try to compel you to do it by denying you treatment if you get sick, and by denying you your job if you work for a company that's 100 or more employees. That's when you see the coercive nature of government and how they use fear as a weapon against you, the individual, to try to coerce you and to try to punish you. And that is why Americans for Limited Government exists, to fight that exact kind of thing. And the battle that we're fighting is the federal level is basically lawsuits. Okay. And we can tell you all about them, and we can tell you which ones there are. But the real battle that has an impact here, and there's some things that can be done on the federal level, and supporting Ted Cruz's legislation on vaccine mandates, opposing them, that matters. Bill Posey's legislation to get to the bottom of the COVID origins, that matters. So there are things that can be done on federal level that really matter. If we were in control of the House or Senate, we could investigate going after the funding, some of the basic funding levels, making certain that we get honest reports out on treatments. We have a lot of capacity to do things like that. But the truth is, right now, the Republicans are in a minority, and it's really hard to put together a majority on anything that would compel the truth to come out of this government. So given that, you have to kind of take care of yourself from a federal government standpoint. But in the state and local government, they have prerogatives too. And that's why our Stop the Vaccine Mandates campaign, which has delivered over 1 million emails to elected officials around the country from you. Why that's so important? Because local officials oftentimes only hear what they're hearing off the news. And you know what they're hearing off the news. If they're not sitting on Breitbart or something, or listening to this channel, they're not on Daily Torch. You know what they're getting? They're getting garbage. They're getting fear. They need to hear from you. They need to hear from your friends. That's why we've invested money to allow you to be able to contact your local officials easily through an email campaign. Go to getliberty.org, hit the button, and share it. I know all of you have taken the action, but share it, share it, share it. There's an unprecedented amount of fear amongst people right now that they're going to get fired because their local police department, out of the local police department, or out of their working at a Walmart, or working wherever they would be working. There's a lot of fear. People have to be able to push back. Give them this opportunity to push back. It matters. And if the legislators don't hear from you, they don't hear from an overwhelming majority of the public, they're going to do what the media says. You know what to do about it. You guys have been great. You're amazing in terms of taking action. And that's one of the things we try to do. You know, it's so trite, but everybody tries to sit there, you read all this stuff and you get all worked up, but nobody ever gives you anything you can do about it. Americans for Limited Government is about engaging you in this process because you're the one who's affected. Your life is the one that's changed. You have your own circumstance for why you make different decisions in your life than the government may want to compel you to. And you have the freedom to exercise those rights. And you also have the freedom to stand up for those rights. And that's why using the take actions matters so much, because that's exercising your right. It's digital assembly. It's your First Amendment right to petition your government. First Amendment just isn't about the crazy newspaper editor being able to write whatever the heck they want on the pages of the newspaper. First Amendment is about your right to petition your government about issues that matter to you. But that right doesn't matter if you don't use them. It doesn't matter if you don't organize and get others to use it. So use it. This is Constitution Day. Use your rights. And always remember, God's in control. And as Billy Graham says, he read the end of the book and God wins. With that, take care and God bless and have a great weekend.